In this special interview, we sit down with Michael Baragwanath, Managing Director at Clime, to explore the company's mission, direction, and vision for the future. Whether you're a team member, a shareholder, or a client, this conversation is designed to give you real insight into what Clime stands for, where it's heading, and how you play a part in its success. From leadership strategy to client outcomes, Michael shares his thoughts on building a stronger Clime for everyone involved. Enjoy.
So I'm a passionate South Australian, sixth generation, I think, South Australian. So I always lived here, always travelled overseas and then come back. So I've worked across Dubai, South Africa, Hong Kong, mainland China, a little bit in Malaysia. So always sort of travelled around, but I've always come home. And previously been a national manager with the Westpac Group. So same sort of thing, was managing across the country, but flying everywhere, going everywhere, coming back home. I've been in financial planning, financial services the last 20 years. So paraplanner, financial advisor, risk specialist, business development manager, national distribution development manager, consultant. I've sort of worked across the breadth. Worked as a responsible manager in compliance, managing licensees, and then consulting in property transactions, setting up financial institutions and licenses, mergers and acquisitions, lots of different stuff. The experience that I can bring to Clime is the diversity of my positions over time, right? So I've found in my time in financial services that most people have very defined careers and step through certain roles and therefore have very deep experience in one area. I hope I'm not overstating it, but I sort of see myself as a Renaissance man, right? So the Renaissance period was this intermingling of science and art, right? And I very much, and what that really meant was very diverse knowledge sets, right? So I definitely cannot paint, definitely not one of the greats, but I would say what I bring to the table is this really diverse experience, having been deep inside financial services institutions, but also at the front line dealing with customers in advisory, while also dealing with intense legal documentation for contracts, property developments, really time critical transactions with debt. All of that sort of experience is really diverse, and it really suits a business like Clime that has this diverse product range. So what I think I bring to the table is the ability to sort of, I know exactly what is going through the mind of our customer service staff because I've done that role. It's sort of like the guy who runs McDonald's, who's been in every single role in McDonald's, right? They know every part of the business. That's sort of what I bring to Clime. What I found really interesting was I find that Clime's just got all these fantastic features, and it was weighed down by a few, transactions and things in the past. But what I saw underneath that was a really, really great business opportunity and a great business overall. So I sort of looked at it and went, this thing could be really great, and I think I know exactly how to make the changes required to get it there. So the funny thing is the acronym for Clime is Clever Investing Made Easy. And I didn't come up with that. That's what John and I think one of the other founding shareholders came up with a long time ago. It used to be called Loftus. They changed it to Clime. And I think that just sums up exactly what the business is about. So, what are we trying to do? We're trying to invest money for people. We're trying to do it in the smartest way we possibly can. And we're trying to make that as easy as we possibly can. So that's essentially what Clime's mission is. Now, how you do that in the Australian landscape? Well, we're servicing high net worth investors because a lot of the legislative framework makes it easier for us to focus on that segment, right? And then what we're looking to do is make their life as easy as we can and to bring them the smartest investments we can. The beauty of Clime, though, is it has this broad offering. So we've got products available for retail investors, we've got products available for high net worth investors, and we've got products that other advisors can use as well. And what I want to do is just be as smart as we possibly can with our product design and make it as easy as possible to deal with us. So I see a couple of things. One, I think it needs to be a much bigger business in as far as the funds under management. And the reason for that is The types of transactions that add value to the Australian economy involve mergers and acquisitions of existing businesses and capitalising businesses and helping them grow, right? So take a step back. The purpose of the financial markets is to enable businesses to access capital and to grow them, right? Now, financial advice and financial services to investors is about getting them an investment return, right? Which is an important part, servicing clients. But if we go to what they're investing for, it's to grow the economy, right? So the vision for Clime is to be a major participant in actively growing the Australian economy, right? It's just as important for us to be loved and respected by our clients as it is for the money we carry to do something of value, right? We're not here to just speculate on future price movements. Clime as a business should be helping our economy grow. Coming into the business, what we had was a pretty high cost executive framework, and a lot of those people were very skilled in financial services licensee management, which is a very specific area of financial services. So their skill set and their knowledge was around managing a licensee that is authorising other advisors that are not in the business, right? But where the business makes almost all of its revenue is funds management. So we had this thing where management was focused and skilled at an area that doesn't make money, but not skilled at an area that the business actually does make most of its money in. So the big change was really just aligning the management with the money, right? And most of that was actually just cutting out a lot of layers of cost that didn't need to be there, because the business, when it's focused, is simpler. So what we did was we took a lot of those expenses out and put them all into the front line, because if our job is managing money, we need people that are in front of our clients and we need people that are making investment decisions. We don't necessarily need head of marketing, head of risk, COO, all of these other sort of roles that, as the business gets larger, you'll need, but for our size, we're, pointed in a different direction. The main impact for Clime is that it's a profitable business, where it just wasn't, and you can't sustain an organisation that's losing money, right? So we weren't able to really grow revenue during this period, but at least we could get the business to the point where it was not going to require shareholders to put more capital in or to borrow money, right? So that's a pretty mission critical point, is that we make money, right? What does it mean for staff? I think you'd have to ask them, but my perception of what's been happening is that people feel like the business is heading in the right direction. They feel like a business that's profitable or heading towards profit is a business that's going to create opportunities for them. And I think the other thing we found is when the executive management is aligned with the business that the areas of the business that make money, well, then they feel like they can raise things that maybe they couldn't raise before, right? So and I've worked with organisations like that where they're very diverse and where your area of the business is not the focus. When you're in that environment, it's very hard to ask for budget or to, bring ideas forward because you feel like the business doesn't care about your area, right? And whether that was true or not is another thing. It's just the perception. So I think what people feel now, and I hope it's what people feel now, is they can bring forward ideas, they can create opportunities, they can bring transactions or, tell us what they want their career to look like and can reasonably expect that we're going to want that to occur as well. Right, so how do we ensure? Well, getting the basics right is probably the easiest way for us to be sure, right? So when we sit down and look at our financial model, are we spending enough to have a reasonably strong prospect of capturing clients and retaining clients, right? Do we have appropriate systems in place? Do we have appropriate record keeping? Do we have appropriate activity targets in place? They're very, very basic things, but they're the things that we can hand on heart say we can execute on, and they're the things that will, can deliver profit for the organisation. So everyone has a role to play, but financial services is a very key person dependent sort of operation. So I guess the first thing I'd say is that every role, no matter who they are or what they do, is a customer service role. So whether you're, one of the portfolio managers or head of research or in the dealing team or in a financial planning role, there's an expectation that you're talking to clients or that you're providing information for clients. So I'd say the first thing is making sure that everyone understands that they're in customer service. Everyone's in sales, basically, right? The second thing is to look at building redundancy around key person, because it's a risk to this type of business. Often fund managers become very fixated on the person that's in charge, right? But it's really the team that gets the result. So what I look at from a people perspective is we want A-grade players, but we want people that are really hungry to solve and really focused on serving others, right? And that sort of approach to life, that idea of sort of gratitude and service to others, means you've always got boundless energy to help people. You've always got boundless energy to find solutions to things, and you're appreciated for it, rather than being a business that is very focused around ego or concerned around people walking on eggshells, things like that. I think it would be assertive. Because if you can ask for what you want and you can ask for your team members to give you things without being rude about it, but you do need to ask, right? So I think the biggest challenge in an organization like this is where everyone wants to be friends with everyone and then feels like they can't ask questions or can't hold people to account. And I'd say that's probably the next element, after all these changes, because change is also, frankly, pretty scary, right? You don't know if it's your next. Even if you outline a strategy, it can become concerning when people are being moved around. But what I'd say is that every person has a responsibility to make sure that they're holding their peers to account with what they need in a friendly way. We don't need to be annoying about it, but if you ask for something, set a timeline, agree on on an outcome, and then follow up if people don't deliver on it. I'll try and tell a little bit of a story really quickly here. I kind of see Clime as an analog or to Stephen Bradbury's story, right? So Steve Bradbury, Olympic speed skater, right? Everyone else fell over, he sailed through. Now you could sit there and go, well, he was coming dead last, but that guy had life-threatening injuries while he was training, just a few years out, had to build himself back up from that, from basically nothing. Was getting towards the end of his career, he felt. And the reality is he showed up. He was there, right? So what do I mean by that? Well, Clime's been around for a fair while. Clime's, suffered a few injuries from, decisions that's made in the past that's hurt it. But I feel like the market at the moment is really waiting for someone to come in. I feel like a lot of people are falling over right now. Like I think of there's some really big compliance issues that are coming up. There's quite a few businesses that are really still zombified from the Royal Commission. These big enterprises that actually are carrying a lot of load and liability and risk, and they haven't really figured out how to get through it. There's quite a few business models that are actually broken, but they're making just enough money to stay in existence. And then there's quite a few fund managers that are really subscale, and they can't move. They've discounted their fees to the point where they can't market, they can't grow, they can't get inflows, but they're just treading water. I feel like a lot of our competitors are treading water. So I think that to me is where I think we're at and what I think the opportunity is. I think that as people are falling over in front of us, we're going to be able to skate through. We're nimble, we're cost efficient. We've got a really great diverse range of product. There's a lot of people looking for new partnerships. A lot of people feel like the incumbent's not working for them. They want to change. And so long as we can deliver on service, so long as we can deliver something clever and we can make it easy, I think we can really win. One of the biggest differences I find is just how diverse the offering is. And, one of the things I had to think through is whether we maintain that diversity or not. But if you look at what we can offer, we have, SMA model portfolios, which, can take every dollar. So a fund manager that's in Australian shares, for example, is very exposed to the movement of the markets, right? Market goes up, great for revenue. Market goes down, bad. When you're running a diversified offer like an SMA, market movements don't really have the same effect on your revenues. So we've got a far more stable earning base, right? We have individually managed accounts, which are perfect for very high net worth clients. We have wholesale product offerings, which allow us to deliver really something quite special and to transact in a way that's really fast and interesting. And then we've got retail products that make it really easy for people to get to know us. And we want to make that part a little bit easier again. So we want to make it really easy for people to make a decision to invest small money with Clime. And that's all about just building our brand so that when they become a bigger investor, they already know us, like us, respect us. But I think what our biggest unique benefit is we have all of that, right? So most of the businesses that do have all of that are already very big, have already discounted everything, and don't have the revenues to move and can't grow very easily. So this quarter for me has been really focused on getting our product offering right. So we're looking at, renaming some of our products, retiring some of our products, launching new ones. And a lot of that is just reconfiguration of the back end. So if you think of how you deliver an offering as a fund manager, you've got to look through your sort of front office, middle office, back office, right? What we've been doing is really strengthening our middle office. And you think of that as like a platform. So our back of office is execution with different brokers and other groups. Our middle office is how we issue reports, track our track performance, transact on assets, give instructions to other people, right? And where we've spent the most amount of time in the last 3 months is strengthening that middle office. And the whole idea is to make sure that we can transact quickly across multiple investment strategies for clients all at once. And that's a really important investment for us to get right, and we've been working through that. The key metrics, the most important one is just net profit, right? It's when what I'm not trying to do is spend all the profit and promise growth in the future. So what we want to have is a sort of 3 buckets, right? One bucket is pay for performance for the staff. One bucket is dividends back to shareholders. And the other one is reinvestment in future growth. So the number one thing for me is just looking at a net profit, our ability to deliver a net profit, our ability to pay a dividend. Now, that's an interesting one because a lot of people would go, well, why when you're a small company, why are you bothering to pay a dividend? Keep all the money, grow the company. I always think that you have to have a conscious consideration for your shareholders at all times, and dividends are risk and return, right? If I'm getting a dividend, every dividend I get reduces the amount of money I've got at risk, if you like. So if I rock up to the casino and I bet $50 and I win 100, my personal approach is to take my $50 back out and play with my winnings, right? And a lot of investors have that approach as well. So for me, the fastest I can get them back their initial investment, the more comfortable they are with their long-term holding in our company because they're playing with their winnings. So the number one metric for me is to make sure we're delivering a net profit, we're paying a dividend. So Clime's a diversified investment company. So what do we mean by that? So diversified means we do a lot of things. Financial services company, we offer financial products and services. So the types of services we have, retail managed funds, so very simple investments that people can just pick and say, look, I want income. We have an Australian income fund. I would like exposure to Australian shares. We have an Australian all cap fund, right? So we have very simple things. Then we have what's called separately managed accounts, which is an entire portfolio managed on your behalf. So your cash, fixed interest, property, Australian shares, we use our managers and other managers to just get the best outcome we can. Now that product is available either through our advisors or through other advisors on other platforms. So think of that like the balanced option on your super fund. We can give you a really transparent, cool version of that that's a little bit cheaper than normal balanced option. And you can actually see everything that's going on underneath. So that's what our SMAs look like. For our high net worth clients, 2 things. One, we run that same model portfolio model, but they're called IMAs, individually managed accounts, which means that you can leave some of your shares in that portfolio or take some out. So you can hand us a portfolio to manage and say, but I'd actually like you to keep this stock, keep that stock, and your own portfolio is managed for you, but we're making a decision across all portfolios at the same time. right? So you get the benefit of our investment team and our analysts looking at a portfolio, but it's specific to you. And then the other main offering is our Clime Private Wealth business, which means, qualified advisors when you need it and transaction specialists when you don't. So for a lot of high net worth clients, this dichotomy with financial planning is really interesting. Most high net worth clients don't really need the type of service a regular financial planner delivers. And in fact, their wealth normally means they can access products that advisors don't normally bring them, right? So what Clime does is we give you a fantastic menu of different investment options. We bring you things that we have and things that others have as well when they come up. But if you need a basic question answered, if you want to talk about your estate planning, if you need advice on that super contribution strategy, those guys can jump in and answer those questions straight away. So we sort of think of it like it's a investment outcome-led solution, not a financial planning-led solution. So great question. A couple of things. First thing is we've been around for a long time. So we've been around nearly 30 years, which means that we want to keep sticking around. And we've been a listed company for quite a long time as well. So what does that mean? It means that we have to be very transparent around our financial performance internally. And it means really you can just look it up and find out how we're going. And the way I look at that is, while it's usually the case that a plumber has a leaking tap and a mechanic has a broken car, as a fund manager, we should be able to run a good business. So being able to look at how well a business is being run should be an indication to how well they can invest your money. And by being listed, it's very easy for people to check that. And we take that approach of transparency all the way down the line. So we want to make sure that any client that asks exactly what we hold and why, that we can give them a real answer on that. The challenge for a lot of financial services businesses is there's a lot of opaque, arrangements that are a bit hard to see what's going on. So if you said, I've got money in a managed fund, well, what are the holdings in that fund? Oh, I can only tell you the top 10. Well, at Clime, I can just bring up the whole list and I can show you every single thing we own in your portfolio. And I think that transparency builds trust. So I think that's they're probably the main reasons that we can solve a lot of problems. We've got a lot of great people. We're in lots of major places around the country, and we want to expand that. We want to have a footprint in every capital city if we can. But we're transparent and we're not going anywhere. So it's interesting because I think there's a lot of things that are the basics that everyone needs to get right. So the first thing for me is just making sure that, we've got the hygiene factors right. So we brush our teeth in the morning, we do all the basics, we get your reports on time, all of those things. And they're ones where I'm not going to say we're a differentiator. So that's not about being different, that's just about being effective, right? Where we differentiate, I think because we've got such a diverse offering, we really can cater to just about any circumstance. And the other thing that we both have and we're building and extending is the ability to bring deal flow, so transactions, right? Because what our value should be is, to do the basics well. So just, build a portfolio of stocks and hold them, that's fine. But we really need to be able to bring you something you can't do yourself. And that's probably the other main thing I'd say is that a lot of businesses in financial services bring you things that you could probably do yourself if you really wanted to, right? And that's okay because, I could service my car, but I don't. I take it to the mechanic. So it's okay to have businesses that, do stuff for you could do yourself, right? But what I look at and what Clime looks to deliver is things you can't do yourself. So we want to bring transactions to people that they couldn't find easily and they couldn't execute even if they had it. And then we want to help them get involved in those transactions and basically do two things: make more money and two, do something real for the Australian economy. So two ways we do that. One is we try and make sure that all of the products and services we offer are, easily controllable, right? So there are lots of different strategic decisions you make when you design your business in financial services that will determine how flexible you can be, right? So if we ran a business that was purely individually picked stocks for each and every single client, when something happens, we would have to fill out 400 sets of documents to change anything, right? By using instruments like individually managed accounts and separately managed accounts, if we need to, we can make big movements and changes real quick. And so that's probably the first thing, is we set our product design out to be able to move quickly if we need to, right? The second thing is to hire experienced people that know that sometimes you shouldn't do anything, right? And that is why it's important not just to get really smart people, but really experienced people, because you need people that have gone through whole market cycles, right? That know full well that markets will overcorrect both ways, right? And that sometimes the best thing is not to jump. The best thing is actually just to leave it alone, or to find more money and take advantage. I've been with the company for a short period of time, so it's hard to immediately jump on that. But I can give you some good examples where people have needed us to move quickly, and we've been able to. So fairly high net worth client had an investment with someone else that they needed to get out of. They needed liquidity to go enter into a personal transaction with their family. Essentially, we were able to jump on the phone, work out exactly what they had, where it was, and facilitate a third-party acquisition. So basically, we sold their holding to another party, and we got that whole thing done in a week. So not a large transaction, but more than $1 million, very, very quickly to an existing high net worth client. So those sorts of little bit of outside the box solutions are really useful. And then the other ways we add value is just essentially by being there consistently year in, year out. So for a lot of the clients that have been with Clime for a long time, they know John Abernathy personally, they know a lot of the staff personally, and there's 3 different things they get in value out of that. One is constant market updates and just market intelligence and thoughts from someone like John, who's sometimes a bit of a contrarian, but always very honest in his opinions and views, which is great. The second thing is just that diversification play. So we basically just make sure that clients are not all in one big thing, and that can work against you sometimes, but normally that works for you, right? And then the third thing is just being a reliable transaction partner. So just making sure things are done properly on time every time and have done for years. Those 3 things add a lot of value. So, how does that tie into investment returns? Well, if you're talking to someone that knows what they're talking about, you typically tend to stay invested, and most people that stay invested do better overall. People that try and chop and change themselves tend to lose more than they gain, right? Having effective systems means you've built trust and you're relying on your investments to perform, and they tend to do that, which means you're adding more money. So little things make big differences, right? Feeling like you're getting regular reports and it's all working properly and you can trust the company you're working with gives you the confidence to put a bit of extra money in, and that small contribution makes a big difference over time. Common concerns are usually around trust. So, it's normally trust and cost. They're the two main concerns, right? Like on the cost side, am I getting value for money? How much work is involved is often, a thing that's really important to explain. It's never really, I just want cheap. It's that I want value for money, right? So that's a concern with investors. If I'm paying a management fee, why? And what are you doing for that money, right? That's a concern. And then the other one is the trust factor is, well, are you any good at this? Are fund managers in general adding value? Should I just buy an index? Things like that. They're the types of things that come up. It's really just trust and cost. So there's numerous ways. One is just you can go online, click the invest now on a lot of our funds, and you can just get started and fill in an application form. The other way is to speak to our investment specialists. So if we have 2 paths, basically. If you would like financial advice and you're not sure what you would like to do, we have the Clime Private Wealth business, and their role is to look at our products and other products and figure out the right personalised solution for you. The other way is to work with our investment specialists, and that is very focused on clients that know what they want, that come along and say, right, build me a portfolio that does this, this, and this. Or I have X amount of dollars, I want you to invest it in this way. So our investment specialists can take more specific instructions and get them started with a portfolio. I'd say jump on board where it's exciting. It's a good business. We do good stuff. We've got great people. I think that's really important. And, we're basically what the whole team is thinking about every day is how we can make it easy for clients and how we can be clever about what we're doing with their money. So I'd say that's why they'd want to be involved. I think it's really good when you can work with a business that is dynamic, excited, growing, but has all the basics covered. I think what I'd really like to see is that Clime made a difference, right? So it's all well and good to say, we managed clients' money and, we did our job. That's the absolute basics, right? What I'd like to see is that Clime's a business that is, effectively a force for, active participation in our economy. I think a lot of funds management and financial services, there's this perception of just floating around and paper shuffling or, speculating on the movement of assets. What I'd like Clime to be known for is making a difference in the economy. I'd like to be able to hand on heart say, we built that or we made that transaction happen. These guys have got jobs from the work we did.